Retail businesses across India reported a growth of 15% in sales as compared to pre-pandemic levels in August 2022. This is as per data from the Retailers Association of India that puts out this survey every month, and they compare it to pre-pandemic levels. So we're seeing a noticeable improvement as per pre-pandemic levels. But why this data is also important, especially for the month of August, because it gives us an insight into what kind of a festive season we may have. To speak more on this, I'm joined now by Kumar Rajagopalan, CEO of Retailers Association of India. Mr. Rajagopalan, thank you for joining us and welcome to the India Development Debate. Let's go through the numbers first. What is the August data telling us?
So if you look at the data for August and as a comparison of August this year versus pre-pandemic, which is 2019, because we've been continuously tracking data vis-a-vis pre-pandemic, that's the real indicator. We've seen a 15% growth overall across the country. And of course, the growth in the east and in the north has been quite good. The growth in the east has been almost 20% and north is about 18% or so. And west and south is yet to catch up. We are accustomed to 20% or 22% kind of growth since April, because April, May, June, July, the retail industry grew by 20% and nearabouts. So this 15% is a slightly more muted growth than what we are accustomed to of late. It's still growth. I think we will take it the way it is. The various categories that are growing is also indicative of what could happen, because the categories that was either to growing really well was things like QSR and then of course electronics and sports goods. Now that's QSR is still growing, but not at the 40% levels, but about 25% levels. The garments and footwear and jewellery started showing some decent growth. Also beauty and wellness, which was otherwise very near pre-pandemic levels all the 4 months earlier, is now shown a 9% growth. So all the preparations towards festive growth is looking positive. However, what we hear is that retailers are finding it easier to sell items at a higher price point, items which are at a slightly lower price point, which are of discretionary in nature, are not being bought so well. So there is a possibility that this inflation is creating an issue for the lower middle class.
I wanted to actually get your sense on inflation. When you say that there's a 15% increase in activity compared to pre-pandemic levels and in sales, retail sales overall, how does higher inflation impact that number? Because the total value of goods would have increased, not necessarily the volume.
Correct. So we should consider about 9% or so in real terms of inflation as far as an average of all the products are concerned. So at about 9% level, we'd still see about 5% growth this month. But otherwise, we are accustomed to almost 10% growth purely on quantities too. So that's why I call it a moderate growth. Also, of course, it's July was not filled with enough occasions, and people have been out there buying various things during occasions. So we'll have to wait for the month of September and October to understand how people are really going to buy.
Yeah. Of course, festive season always has a better than average performance for the rest of the year. Also, this disparity that you talked about, that's interesting, and I'd like to delve into a little bit more, where you're saying that high-ticket items are moving faster than lower value discretionary items. Would you say this is also mirroring the widening income gap, where the upper middle class, elite or rich are able to spend more than the rest?
I don't know whether I can immediately call it the widening income gap, but we can definitely call it as a trend of a different nature, in the sense that people who do have the money are out there buying and enjoying whatever they can. And people who do not have that amount of money are hesitating. It's not that they were not buying. The point is, during the month of May, April, May, June, all classes of people were buying. All people with all incomes were buying, because they were all onto the thought that they are now able to come and cheer. Occasions were there. So the real thing is going to happen during the occasion time. That's why I look at East, because in the East, it is the first indicator of where the business can go towards. because the puja buying happens first across the country for the season. So hopefully things should get better. But definitely people who got the money are buying better, and people who don't have as much money, even the slightly lower middle class, are not buying as much. They have kind of put a pause.
Yeah. In terms of outlook for the festive season, what is it looking like, considering that after adjusting for inflation, you're saying that August is seeing a moderate growth compared to previous years?
So one would think that if it comes back to the 20-25% growth level over pre-pandemic, that would be the right kind of growth to really look at, because the first 4 months we witnessed that growth, and that is in spite of the inflation, right? And like you said, if you consider the 9% inflation in it, it's still a good growth over 2 years before. I mean, let's not forget, it's not last year or the year before last. Last year and year before last, the numbers are very skewed thanks to the pandemic and the erratic purchasing behavior. So we would think that about 20% and above would show proper growth. We do hope that all kinds of products get sold. It should not be restricted to discretionary items bought by the slightly affluent class. So we'll have to wait and watch. There is a bit of a question mark there.
Yeah. In terms of inflationary pressure, we saw CPI this month coming in at 7%. We know that inflation is going to be sticky for some time. US inflation data is out today, and that is also higher than what was expected at 8.3%. Are you expecting prices to go up even further? And in what categories will we see the biggest hit?
Currently, there is no clear indication of any particular item that would go much further from here, and we hope it won't, because I think we've come into a situation wherein customers are just about able to buy the items at the price that they are in currently. Some of them have adjusted themselves to thinking that this is the normal, while the others are still hoping that the prices would come down. We've seen that some kinds of items, especially in the food segment, oil, etc., had got a slightly easing of the prices. So we'd hope that prices won't go up. I mean, the war-like situation has also become a norm as far as the Russia-Ukraine part is concerned. But the global agriculture doesn't look very, very nice. So there's all kinds of factors happening. So we're not able to be very clearly pinpointing and predicting that this is going to be the price at which things would be. But we don't expect a big jump in prices. I don't think we can take it.
Absolutely. There would be a limit to which the last final consumer would also come forward and open their wallet. Thank you so much, Kumar Rajagopalan. Pleasure as always to speak with you.
Thank you.